It's Memorial Day weekend here in the US, so that means that it's time for Milorganite application. So today, beyond applying Milorganite, I want to kind of explain why I believe it's the best choice for me going into the summer months. Let me start out with a little background on my yard to explain a few things. I have a cool season lawn. I'm located in the northern part of the US. So I have a Kentucky bluegrass lawn in my backyard. So the important part about cool season lawns is that fall is going to be our best time to feed those and to fertilize them. The reason for this is that it's just the optimal time for the plant to take in all those nutrients from the fertilizer, store that up. It goes dormant over the winter season here. It stores all that energy, and then in the spring it comes back. And it comes out very nicely in the spring when you fertilize heavy in the fall. So it's just my theory personally on what I like to do on my yard, but I don't like to push my yard too much with nitrogen in the early spring season. And as you'll see from a video that I made earlier this year, I have no problems with spring green up or any of those things. My yard always comes out green really early on in the spring season, and that's mainly attributed to what I do in the fall. So then, because of those fall applications, not only do I get the green up, but I also get a ton of spring growth anyway. So I don't like to push nitrogen at this point because the grass itself is already doing a lot of the growth on its own. And if we were to add more nitrogen at that point, early in the spring, then I'm going to have so much growth going on the top part of the grass. Then it's going to be, one, very difficult to keep up with the mowing, and two, as I've had this year a little bit, I'm going to get so much top growth that there's a little bit of an issue with fungus from time to time if the grass stays wet for too long. So because I don't like to use a lot of fertilizer in the early spring, right before the summer months, the grass is kind of looking like it needs a little bit of something. Right now, mine is looking a lot more lime green. That's kind of from a little bit of excess moisture that's been happening, but also it's needing a little bit of a feeding and it needs some iron. So we're going to get some iron from this Milorganite, and we're going to get some feeding from it. But the important part is that it's going to be slow release, and it's going to work on this yard over the next couple summer months while it's at a very hot part of the season, and when I really don't want to be pushing the yard too much at this point either. The reason for that is that cool season grass is naturally not going to thrive too much during these summer months. When it's very, very hot, this grass is trying to kind of hold back and hold in all of its nutrients and all those things so that we don't do any damage to the yard, and it can come back nicely in the fall. So Milorganite is great there because we get a slow release fertilizer, and this happens because the microbes in the soil need to break this down over time. It needs heat, needs a little bit of water, and this happens as a slow process naturally, so that's the reason why it's mainly a slow release fertilizer. Another reason tied to that slow release aspect is it's pretty much impossible to burn your yard. Now, if we were to take this whole bag, dump it in one little spot, there's a possibility we could burn that spot just from too much fertilizer. But if you're applying this correctly, even a little bit heavy, you're not going to have issues with burning. Now, if we were using a regular synthetic fertilizer, something that was maybe quicker release, a lot of the synthetics now have some coatings on them to slow things down as well. So there's not as much risk there, but if you were using something that you maybe just picked up at the store, didn't really know a whole lot about it, put it down on your yard, maybe you put it down a little bit heavier than you actually should have, then there's some risk here if you don't get it watered in very well that it could actually burn your yard. So that's another reason why I really like this fertilizer in general. It's just because there's really no risk to it. If you don't know exactly what you're doing with your spreader, if you go a little bit heavy, it's not going to be a problem. You're not going to hurt anything. Another aspect that I've liked from using Milorganite over the past couple years is that it really helps to build our soil. So depending on what kind of soil you have, maybe you have a clay soil, maybe you have a really sandy soil, there's not a lot of nutrients in there, then this is going to help us over time. It's going to take some time, but it is going to help us to build our soil, build the natural activity in the soil, the microbes. I've just noticed over time that this has helped to build my soil, make things a little bit healthier overall, and that's always what we're going for. And finally, you heard me mention iron, and what iron does for the grass is our nitrogen helps make it green and helps make it grow taller, but iron is a really good way to help the grass green up a little bit more without pushing some growth on it. So this fertilizer contains a little bit of iron as well, and I'll probably be doing some iron applications alone in addition to this fertilizer and kind of show you how that works out. So normally when I apply this fertilizer, maybe you get a little bit of rain afterwards. It's normally when I start to see a little bit of the green up quickly, and that's mainly from the iron there. So you can add iron to your yard without using a fertilizer. You can do it in a standalone application. But this little bit of iron here is just going to help us get a little bit extra green, helps things turn a little bit more of a blue-green, and it just helps the yard to look really nice. So there you have it, a few thoughts on why I like to use Milorganite right before the summer months hit. Leave me a comment below on why you like to use Milorganite and a few thoughts you might have. Thanks for watching this one. We'll see you next time.